She was only 4 years old, with big brown eyes, a contagious laugh, and a love for all things pink. But by the time Aniya Marie Day Garrett's story made headlines, it wasn't her bright spirit the world remembered. It was the bruises, the burns, and the haunting question that still lingers. How many warnings were missed before it was too late? Born on September 2nd, 2013, in Euclid, Ohio, Aniya entered the world surrounded by love, at least at first. Her parents, Sierra Day and Michael Garrett, split up when she was just a toddler. They were never married, but Michael remained determined to stay in his daughter's life. He fought to be present. He showed up, and he noticed things that no father should ever have to notice. During visits, he began seeing bruises on his daughter's tiny body marks on her chest, her back, her face. When he asked questions, the answers were always the same. She fell. She's clumsy. She's dramatic. Sierra dismissed it all. But Michael wasn't buying it. He knew something was wrong. And when he tried to push for answers, it only escalated the conflict. Instead of working with him, Sierra filed a restraining order claiming Michael was harassing her, overstepping, trying to control what wasn't his. And just like that, the man trying to protect his daughter was silenced. From that point on, Aniya became increasingly isolated. Sierra began pulling away from extended family, cutting ties, and controlling who saw her daughter, if anyone did at all. Michael's visits were restricted to supervised sessions, and behind closed doors, no one knew what was really happening. But signs of something deeply wrong kept surfacing. Once Sierra placed Aniya in daycare at Harbor Crest in Euclid, the pain her daughter was living through became impossible to hide. Staff at the daycare began documenting injuries not just once or twice, but over and over again. 18 separate reports. Burns, bruises, black eyes. And with every new mark, the same story played out. Sierra brushed it off, blamed the child, and even went as far as calling her own daughter a liar. Imagine that, a 4-year-old child begging to be heard and being told she can't be trusted, that she's making it up, that the pain she's in is somehow her fault. And still no one stepped in. This story is one of the most tragic and deeply disturbing cases we've ever covered here on True Crimes by Dominik. It's not just about abuse. It's about a system that saw all the signs and still failed. And if you're new here, subscribe to True Crimes by Dominik. We release new deep dive stories every 2 days, and they're told with truth, heart, and unflinching honesty. Be sure to hit the like button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because the deeper we go into this case, the darker it gets. Now imagine this. Your child comes to you, begging for help, saying the other parent is hurting them. You do everything you can to protect them. You call, you report, you fight in court. But instead of getting support, your silence cut off completely. You're forced to sit at home, watching from the sidelines, knowing your child is in danger, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. That may sound like a nightmare, a twisted, unthinkable scenario. But for Michael Garrett, this was real life. And for his daughter, 4-year-old Aniya Marie Day, it became a death sentence. Despite multiple red flags, cries for help, and undeniable evidence of harm, not a single teacher, officer, or mandated social worker was able to save her. Some tried, others looked away, and the result was catastrophic. It started in May of 2017. Aniya showed up at daycare with visible bumps on her head and a fresh scrape across her face. When asked what happened, she didn't hesitate. She told the caretaker, "Mommy pushed me down the stairs." But Sierra Day, her mother, brushed it off, claiming it happened at the park. A fall, nothing more. Just days later, Aniya returned to daycare. This time she was complaining of a headache, but it was more than that. When a staff member checked her, they found blisters on her scalp and dried blood inside her ear. Sierra had an explanation for that. Too, she said it was an allergic reaction. Blamed the shampoo. Then in the same breath, changed her story, claiming it might have been from a braid that was tied too tightly. But when Aniya was gently pulled aside and asked directly, her answer couldn't have been clearer. "Mommy hit me. Mommy hurt me." That should have been enough. The daycare director contacted police immediately. Aniya was sent to the hospital for evaluation. She had suffered injuries, real ones, and there were official reports documenting them. But somehow, after everything, she was sent right back home, back to the same environment she had just tried to escape. And it only got worse. By July of 2017, Sierra had a new man in her life, Deontay Lewis, a 26-year-old security guard. No criminal history, no glaring warning signs. But behind closed doors, he was not the protector he posed to be. Family members described him as possessive and domineering. And when he moved into Sierra's apartment, the atmosphere shifted. It grew darker, tighter, more volatile. Michael, Aniya's father, noticed the change almost immediately. He was still fighting for custody, still documenting everything. He saw the bruises, fresh ones, on her chest and back. On another visit, he spotted a rotting tooth in her mouth that had gone completely untreated. He took photos, filed reports, went to Cleveland police, pleaded with the court. But again, no real action was taken. No one intervened. Then in December of that year, a referral was finally made to Child Protective Services. A social worker visited Sierra's apartment. She found more bruises, more burns. But because the apartment had working heat, running water, and stock cabinets, she marked the home as acceptable. The basics were covered, so the child was left behind. Michael was told that an investigation was underway. It wasn't. There was no escalation, no emergency removal, no safety plan. Just vague reassurances and time quietly ticking away. Knowing she was under scrutiny, Sierra decided to move her daughter out of Harbor Crest Daycare and into a new preschool one where she worked. It was called Get Ready, Set, Grow in Euclid. And now with Sierra as a staff member, her ability to hide what was really going on only increased. This new school had less oversight, fewer people asking questions, and the damage, both physical and emotional, only intensified. By the time Aniya arrived at her new daycare, she was thin, fragile, withdrawn. Her body showed signs of neglect. When co-workers raised concerns about her alarming weight loss, Sierra shut it down, said she'd always been small. But what was happening to that little girl couldn't be explained away with genetics. By January of 2018, despite everything, the hospital visits, the daycare reports, the police filings, the direct statements from Aniya herself, the case against Sierra was officially closed. Authorities labeled the abuse allegations unsubstantiated. She was allowed to keep custody. She was allowed to keep Deontay in the home. And she was allowed to keep hiding right in plain sight. A follow-up home visit was scheduled for March 9th, but Sierra postponed it to March 12th. And for little Aniya, that day never came. March 11th, 2018. A call is made to 911 from a small apartment in Cleveland. On the line was Deontay Lewis. His voice was calm, unnervingly calm, as he told the dispatcher that 4-year-old Aniya had fallen off the toilet and was having trouble breathing. 4 minutes into the call, Sierra Day took over the phone. She told the operator she had checked her daughter's nose and that there was no air coming out. Still, her tone didn't carry the frantic urgency you'd expect from a mother whose child wasn't breathing. The dispatcher gave clear, life-saving instructions. Start CPR, but there was no indication that either Deontay or Sierra ever tried. The entire call was cold, flat, detached. It felt more like reporting a spilled drink than a child slipping away. When paramedics arrived, the scene inside the apartment was chilling, literally. There was an overpowering smell of bleach. The room was cold, the air conditioner running full blast even though it was a frigid March day. On the floor, beneath that cold current of air, lay little Aniya. Her tiny frame was dressed in a full winter outfit. She wasn't near the bathroom like they claimed. She was nowhere near a toilet. She was on the floor, motionless, and cold to the touch. It didn't take long for responders to realize she had been dead for hours. Her body was stiff. Rigor mortis had already set in. Her lips were cracked, her face pale. The signs of starvation, of prolonged neglect, were written across every inch of her. She weighed just 26 pounds. Beneath her oversized coat, her bones protruded, her vertebrae and hip bones pushing through thinning skin. Her face was bruised, one eye swollen completely shut. A gash above that same eye had already started to dry and darken. Across her tiny body, they found a map of violence: cuts, bruises, burns, and skin that had begun to hang from muscle loss. Her legs and knees bore pressure sores, the kind you only get from being stuck in one position, unmoved, for hours, maybe even days. The room smelled like urine. Her mattress had been stripped of its bedding, except for one thin fleece blanket. Court papers tied to Michael Garrett's custody battle were found shredded and stuffed into the trash. And the only food in the home? 2 half-eaten Chipotle bowls sitting cold in the microwave. From the very start, things didn't add up. Sierra and Deontay repeated their story. She fell from the toilet, hit her head, and went unconscious. But when questioned more closely, Sierra gave another detail. She claimed Aniya hadn't eaten in 4 days, since a meal at Red Lobster made her sick. That was a Thursday. But what Sierra's own brother told investigators painted a far darker timeline. Back in February, just weeks before Aniya's death, Isaiah Day had come by the apartment. He found his niece lying still on the bed, unmoving. He asked if she was okay. Sierra's reply? A casual, yeah. She went on to say that Aniya hadn't been eating much, but according to Isaiah, her condition was far worse than that. She was already so weak she couldn't walk. It appeared she had already lost function in her legs. Isaiah didn't call for help. He never contacted the authorities. He only mentioned it after Aniya was gone. And then came the gut punch. Just a few weeks earlier, on February 21st, Sierra had contacted local police, but not about her daughter. She called to report a stolen laptop. Officers showed up at the apartment. Deontay answered the door, but no one went inside. If they had, there's a good chance they would have found a starving, injured child clinging to life in the next room. In the hours after her death, Sierra and Deontay were taken in for questioning. Sierra told investigators that her daughter had come down with what looked like the flu on March 8th, 3 days earlier. She said they tried feeding her soup, gave her Tylenol, and even ginger ale, but that nothing stayed down. Despite her condition worsening rapidly, they never took her to a hospital. Instead, Sierra claimed she thought her daughter was faking. She said Aniya had scared herself to death. That's what she told police. She gave her daughter a bath. Later, when Aniya said she was sleepy, Sierra let her lie down. Then hours later, she made a call, not to emergency services, but to a 24-hour nurse hotline. But by then, it was already too late. During the interview, Sierra started pointing fingers at Deontay. She claimed he was in charge of feeding Aniya. She said he denied the medical care. She even told police he'd beaten her daughter before, using a belt. But it didn't matter who did what. Both were charged with the same horrific crimes: murder, aggravated murder, felonious assault, child endangerment, and tampering with evidence. And as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a timeline that made everything even more disturbing. Surveillance footage showed Sierra and Deontay the night before Aniya died, out together at a Chipotle restaurant, laughing, eating burrito bowls. Later, they were seen at Walmart, shopping for snacks and household items, including bleach, while their daughter lay dying. The autopsy confirmed what responders already suspected, but the details were worse than anyone imagined. Dr. Joseph Philo, the chief deputy medical examiner of Cuyahoga County, found that Aniya had endured weeks of escalating trauma. She weighed just 26 pounds, putting her in the 3rd percentile for her age. That means she was smaller and thinner than 97% of children her age. Her forehead bruise was about a week old. Her swollen eye, inflicted 2 days before death. Petechiae, tiny broken blood vessels, were found around her eyes, signs of oxygen loss and suffering. But the final cause of death was devastating. A cerebral infarction caused by blunt force trauma to the head. This was no accident. The impact had created a subdural hematoma, bleeding on the brain, that had developed slowly over time. It caused a stroke that shut down the left side of her brain, impairing her ability to speak, move, or even eat. And on top of that, there was malnutrition. Her stomach lining was ulcerated, her pancreas was inflamed, her lungs showed signs of collapse. Her body had begun consuming itself, breaking down muscle and fat in a desperate attempt to survive. This wasn't one bad night. This was a slow, relentless death stretched out over days, even weeks. Dr. Philo classified her death as homicide, and it was as clear-cut as it gets. A little girl begged for help, and the world turned its back. As investigators dug deeper into the disturbing timeline of little Aniya's final days, they uncovered something that chilled even the most seasoned detectives. Hidden within the suspect's cell phones was a video, a sex tape recorded at exactly 3:28 p.m. on March 10, 2018, just one day before Aniya's death. While their 4-year-old daughter was slowly slipping away in the next room, sick, starving, and suffering, Sierra Day and Deontay Lewis were recording themselves in an act of pleasure, completely detached from the horror unfolding feet away. It was yet another brutal reminder of just how deeply detached these two were from the reality of their child's pain. But finally, justice for Aniya began to take form. On February 28, 2019, the courtroom doors opened for the trial that would shine a harsh, necessary light on what this little girl had endured. The prosecutors were ready. They walked the jury and the entire courtroom through the horrific evidence, piece by piece, painting a picture of a child failed not just by the people who were supposed to love her, but by the system meant to protect her. The defense attempted to do what defenses often try. They argued that Aniya's injuries were accidental or somehow caused by outside factors. But that argument quickly crumbled under the mountain of damning evidence and emotional testimonies. 37 witnesses came forward. Daycare workers, emergency responders, social workers, family members. They all spoke about the warning signs, the bruises, the red flags, and the chilling lack of action. Paramedics described in detail what they saw when they entered that apartment. A little girl emaciated beyond imagination, lifeless on the floor, while her parents stood emotionless. One of the most haunting pieces of evidence was surveillance footage shown to the court of Sierra and Deontay casually eating burrito bowls at Chipotle and buying bleach at Walmart on the very night Aniya lay dying. No urgency, no concern, just cold, calm detachment. Observers in the courtroom couldn't help but notice something else. Sierra Day didn't flinch. Even when graphic photos of her daughter's battered body were displayed on the screen, she remained stoic, empty, and void of remorse. Prosecutors pointed to her demeanor as further proof of the chilling indifference she and Deontay had toward Aniya's suffering. But it was Michael Garrett, Aniya's biological father, who delivered the trial's most heart-wrenching moment. Taking the stand, he fought through tears as he shared what it meant to love his daughter and how helpless he felt as she slipped further and further away from him. He described his last visit with Aniya during a supervised visit. She was barely herself. No longer the vibrant, smiling little girl he remembered, but frail, withdrawn, and silent, a ghost of the child he once knew. Michael had tried to protect her. He fought for custody. He pleaded with the courts, but his efforts were blocked, partly because Sierra had filed a restraining order against him, limiting his ability to intervene during a time when it was clear his daughter was in danger. His grief, his frustration, and his fury at the system's failure were raw and undeniable. Eventually, the verdict came down. Guilty on all charges. Both Sierra Day and Deontay Lewis were convicted. During sentencing, the judge didn't hold back. He described their actions as inhumane and unfathomable, and reminded the courtroom that Aniya's death could have been prevented. Sierra, just 24 years old at the time, was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. Deontay, 27, received life with the possibility of parole after 20 years. But even as the courtroom closed, the pain and outrage didn't fade. The horror of what happened to Aniya sparked statewide outrage and forced officials in Ohio to take a hard look at their own failures. Michael Garrett, refusing to let his daughter's death be in vain, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cuyahoga County Department of Children and Family Services. The lawsuit accused the agency of gross negligence and a complete failure to act, even after multiple reports of abuse and neglect were brought to their attention. It highlighted a trail of missed opportunities, ignored warnings, and missteps that ultimately allowed a little girl to remain in a home that was clearly unsafe. An external investigation later revealed the heartbreaking truth. CPS had failed Aniya at every turn. Internal memos and disciplinary letters exposed how caseworkers ignored red flags, failed to document injuries, and neglected to follow up with other professionals who could have verified the abuse. There were reports from Harbor Crest Daycare, clear as day, describing visible injuries on Aniya, and yet nothing was done. No meaningful coordination between police, doctors, and daycare staff. No real investigation. Just silence. As a result of this failure, several CPS employees were disciplined or fired, and the agency was forced to overhaul its child protection policies. 2 daycare centers tied to the case, Harbor Crest Childcare and Get Ready Set Grow Preschool, were shut down indefinitely. In June of 2020, a small measure of justice was served when Michael Garrett was awarded $3 million in damages. But no amount of money could ever bring back what he lost. For Michael, and for so many others who watched this case unfold, the lawsuit wasn't about compensation, it was about accountability. On March 16, 2018, the community came together to mourn. That Friday from noon to 7 p.m., a public viewing was held for Aniya. People filed in one by one, some in tears, some in silence, to say goodbye to a little girl who should still be alive. The next day on Saturday, March 17th, her funeral was held at River of Life Ministries in Euclid, Ohio. Her small pink casket, crowned with a delicate tiara, was carried through the streets in a horse-drawn carriage. It was a moment of both beauty and unbearable sorrow. That carriage didn't just carry a child, it carried the weight of a community's grief and the haunting realization that our systems failed to hear her cries. In a final twist of legal drama, Deontay Lewis tried to appeal his conviction. He argued that his trial had been unfair, that the evidence was flawed. But in 2022, the Ohio Court of Appeals rejected his appeal, upholding both his conviction and his life sentence. As we reflect on this tragedy, one thing becomes heartbreakingly clear. Aniya Garrett fought with everything she had. Even at just 4 years old, she spoke up. She tried to be heard again and again, but no one listened until it was far too late. From daycare workers to social workers to her own father, Aniya told them. She pointed to her bruises. She spoke about the pain. She named the people hurting her. And still, no one stepped in time. Aniya Day. Garrett didn't just suffer in silence. She tried to fight for her own survival. At just 4 years old, she did what many adults struggle to do. She asked for help. But the people who were supposed to protect her, the very systems built to respond, looked the other way. It's a chilling truth we're forced to confront again and again on True Crimes by Dominik. Sometimes the most vulnerable victims do speak up. And still, they're unheard, unseen, unprotected. By the time anyone listened to Aniya, her light had already gone out. And so we're left with this unbearable question. How many more children have to die before someone listens the first time? Her father, Michael Garrett, never stopped fighting. Not in life, not in death. His grief became a mission to hold those accountable who turned their backs on his daughter. Through his persistence and the outrage of an entire community, Aniya's story sparked changes that were long overdue. But reforms after a tragedy don't bring the child back. They just beg the world to do better next time. And the cruelest part? If history has taught us anything, it's that there will be a next time. Another little voice, another ignored plea, another child taken too soon, not because they didn't speak, but because we didn't listen. So now I ask you, what would you have done if you were in their shoes? The daycare worker, the caseworker, the neighbor? Would you have done more, or would you too have looked away? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters, especially for those who no longer have one. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to True Crimes by Dominik. We uncover new stories every 2 days, stories that deserve to be told and remembered. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss the next case. Because sometimes awareness is the only form of justice left. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and above all, Never ignore a child's cry for help.